Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Buxton Barrow Man. And as the thumbnail states, yes, new set of houses is due to be built in this lovely place. However, before we get to the damage of such, I think it's appropriate to learn a little bit of history on the site. This is Hogshaw Tip, or just Hogshaw, and it lies on the outskirts of urban Buxton. The name Hogshaw comes from, well, this area. Hogshaw, a very low-lying part of the town which does feel quite separated and secluded from the rest of Buxton on the other side of the railway tracks, and Fairfield above it. And this whole area is built around Hogshaw Brook. For most of this area's life, it was used as agricultural land, but as the railways arrived in 1863, Buxton's population and popularity began to rise. And with that, more demand for railway infrastructure. And so, with permission granted in 1874 and construction wrapping up in 1892, the new line from Ashbourne to Buxton was completed, creating the iconic Hogshaw Viaduct in the centre of town and also the Hogshaw railway sidings. A vital part of Buxton's railway system until the closure of the Ashbourne line in 1963. After the closure, the sidings lost its purpose and eventually demolition followed suit. And in the years following, as you could tell, nature has taken over and it is now a lovely nature reserve and park. A new sidings was constructed in 2019, just there, and it was partially built on the site of the old sidings and also a landfill to the north of the site, where I'm currently stood. Now, Hogshaw Tip, I can't work out on old maps when it actually started as a tip, but I think by the 1980s it had wrapped up. Oh, and you could tell it's an old tip because it's got all of these, it's like all the gases out of the rubbish that I'm currently stood atop. But at least, you know, nature's grown over it pretty well. And of course, as this video is about, a brand new housing estate is due to call Hogshaw its home, even after many years of controversy. So the plans. This is the overview of the new estate, and as you could tell, other than the retention pond in the top left corner, it isn't on the site of the nature reserve, but lies on farmland behind Nunfield Farm and the business of G.R. Lee. The initial plan called for 116 homes, but Barrett the developer later altered this to 99. Or at least I think it's that way round, as all the plans online include 116 homes, so I think it's 116 to 99 and not the other way round, but we'll see as it gets built. Speaking of Barrett, they do also have current development in Buxton up in Harper, and as new builds go, they're not bad. The development has been halted in the past due to environmental concerns, particularly flood risks, in relation to possibly causing the old tip to be eroded into the river if such extremes aren't planned for. And flooding is a problem that Hogshaw has faced in the past, and an organisation called Friends of Hogshaw in particular pushed against any development around the nature reserve and wreck. However, it is at the end of the day the council who get the final say, and as of the 11th of August, the plans have been approved. I think in part pushed by the money that they've already wasted on this roundabout, which will connect the estate up to the A6, as no other road connection is to be built for the development. Presumably because these roads, I think built in part for the new development here in the 60s to 70s, are too small. Another thing of note is Nestle, who of course owns Buxton Water, are planning on building a new pipeline from the source at St Anne's to their bottling plant via this new development, as seen here hashed in green, and maybe there's a connection to this money-wise, but who knows. I do think it's a shame to have more of the outskirts of Buxton being urbanised, particularly so close to such a lovely nature reserve, but unfortunately the green light has been given. All I can hope for that this isn't a trend, and so this doesn't keep creeping further into our fields. I also want to state, before COVID, the initial plans that the council had laid out included development actually within the nature reserve on the Hogshaw wreck, which is where a lot of this protest initially came from. Now thankfully the council have changed their plans and have allowed development to only continue around the nature reserve instead of inside. But I made this video in particular because any time Hogshaw is brought up and new houses, people are going to think that the nature reserve is at risk. Thankfully, with this development, it's just the retention pond in the top of it which breaches any form of the nature reserve. But that's pretty much it from this episode. Please let me know what you think of this down below. Thank you very much for watching. A huge thank you to all my supporters on Ko-fi, and until next time, ta-ra.